All right, so now we're going to move on to transformation of segments. Hopefully you've already seen the video on transformations of points. And if you can transform points, you can definitely transform segments. So look at this, this line segment here that we have. This is segment MT. And this segment, we can do all the same things with this segment that we did with those points. We can reflect this segment over the y-axis. We can reflect this segment over the x-axis. We can rotate this segment 90 degrees. We can rotate it 180 degrees about the origin. And then we can also translate it. We can translate it down. We can translate it up. We can translate it right. We can translate it left. So let me give you a very basic two-step procedure for transforming segments. So to transform a segment, first you're going to transform the endpoints of the segment. So for example, over here, the endpoints are point M and point T. So you would ignore the rest of the segment and you would just focus on point T. And if you're reflecting it, you'll reflect point T because you already know how to do that. You saw my video on transforming points. If you're going to rotate it, you're going to take point T and you're going to rotate it 90 degrees, 100 degrees, whatever, or translate it. And after whatever you do to T, you're going to do the exact same thing to M. So if you reflect T over the y-axis, then you're going to reflect M over the y-axis. Okay, so you're going to do the exact same thing to M that you do to T. So the first thing we do is transform the endpoints of the segment. Step 2, connect the endpoints with a segment. And so you should go ahead and put these two steps in your notes. And now all we're really going to do is we're just going to do several examples where we rotate, reflect, and translate line segments. All right, let's look at this one. It says reflect line segment AB, which is right here. Here's line segment AB, reflected over the y-axis. So here's the y-axis. We're going to reflect it over the y-axis, okay, to line segment A prime, B prime. So we often do this. What we do is we take the mirror image of A, and wherever we put it over here, we're going to call it A prime. We put an apostrophe on it and we call it prime. We'll do the same thing with point B. And the first thing we're going to do to be able to accomplish this is we're going to identify the coordinates of A prime and B prime. And then we're going to plot them. That's step 1. Step 2, we're going to draw a segment between them. So we know that A is at the point 7, 8. And so that's going to then transform into A prime. And since it's a reflection over the y-axis, we know that what we have to do is we're going to keep the same y value, so it's still going to be 8, and we're going to do the negative of the x value. So we have negative 7, so we're going to do negative 7, which is positive 7. So A prime is at the coordinates 7, 8. So that's right here. 7, 8 is right there. That's going to be A prime. Okay. Now we're going to transform B into B prime, and we're going to do the exact same thing because we're reflecting over the y-axis. We reflected A over the y-axis. Now we're going to reflect B over the y-axis. Again, we're going to keep the y-coordinate. We're going to keep the 3, and then we're going to take the x-coordinate and we're going to make it negative. So we're going to have negative 4. Well, negative 4 is positive 4, so it's going to be at 4, 3. There's our B prime. And now we're just going to draw a segment between them. There we go. And so now this whole segment A prime, B prime, is a reflection of segment AB over the y-axis. Let's try another one. All right, so now we're going to do another one. Reflect the same segment, AB, over the x-axis to create A double prime, B double prime, segment A double prime, B double prime, okay? So instead of reflecting over the y-axis like we did with the last one, now we're going to reflect over the x-axis, okay? And so first, we got to do A double prime and B double prime there. So we're going to get the coordinates of A double prime and B double prime. Well, A, when reflecting over the x-axis, we keep the x-coordinate. So A double prime is going to start with a -7, and then we're going to do the negative of the y-coordinate. So we're going to do -8. So we're going to, A double prime is going to be at -7, -8. So here's -7, then we're going to go down to -8, and I think it's going to be right here. So there's A double prime. And now B, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to reflect it over the x-axis. So to get double prime here, we're going to keep the x-coordinate, -4, and we're going to change the sign of the y-coordinate. So 3 is going to become -3. And so we're going to go to -4, -3, which is going to be right here. So that's going to be B double prime. And now we just draw a segment between them. And there we go. There's our reflection of segment AB over the x-axis. So I thought it might be a good idea if we review the rules for rigid transformations of points, in case maybe you didn't see the video on that. So you can maybe take a picture of this, screenshot, or write it into your notes. These are the two rules that we used just on the last examples. They're the transformations for reflecting a point over the y-axis and reflecting a point over the x-axis. When we reflected over the y-axis, we took our points and we just switched the sign of the x. And when we reflected over the x-axis, we just took our point and we changed the sign of the y. Okay. So what we're about to do is we're about to rotate a point or a couple points 90 degrees clockwise about the origin. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take those points, those xy points, and we're going to reverse them. Okay, so we're going to put the y coordinate over as the x coordinate. You can see that right here. And then we're going to move the x coordinate as the y coordinate. That's here. But we're also going to make the x the opposite sign. So the y is going to be the x, and then -x is going to be the y. And that's for a 90-degree clockwise rotation about the origin. All right, so here we are. Here's segment CD. And I'll remind you, if we were going to write that geometrically, that's how we would write it. We could also just as easily write it segment DC. That's fine. It has two endpoints. So this says rotate segment CD 90 degrees clockwise about the origin to segment C prime D prime. Here's the origin. So we're going to take this point and rotate it, and then we're going to take this point and rotate it 90 degrees. Okay. And the way we do that is we're going to first identify the coordinates of C prime and D prime. So here's point C is at 3, 2. So that's going to transform into point C prime. And what we said was the y coordinate was going to become the x coordinate. So we're going to have 2, comma. And then the x coordinate, we're going to change the sign. So 3 is going to become -3. And then that's going to be our y coordinate for the translation. Okay, or transformation, sorry. I keep saying translate. I mix up translate and transform all the time. Translate is a specific kind of transformation. But right now we are rotating. Okay, so for this rotation, our y coordinate is becoming our x coordinate 2, and our x coordinate is going to become negative, and that's going to become our y coordinate. So C prime is at 2, -3. So 2, -3 is right here. So that's going to be C prime. Now to get D prime, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take our y coordinate 6 and make it our x coordinate. We're going to take our x coordinate 8 and we're going to make it -8, and that's now going to be our y coordinate. So we're going to go to 6, -8, 6, -8, and that's going to be D prime. And now we're just going to draw a segment between these 2 points, and there is our rotation. Okay, so CD is being rotated 90 degrees about the origin. Okay, now you may think to yourself, man, that rotation looks a lot like a reflection. It's not. I mean, I know it looks a little bit like one, but it's not. If we had done a reflection, this point right here would go right here, and this point right here would go right about here. Okay, So this is definitely a rotation and not a reflection. So be careful, be very careful, and make sure you get your coordinates correct. Let's try one more of these as an example. All right, so now this is saying rotate CD. So we're gonna start with the same segment. We're gonna rotate it 180 degrees about the origin to C double prime D double prime. This is segment C double prime D double prime. Now you may say, well, are we rotating 180 degrees clockwise or counterclockwise? It doesn't matter. A 180 degree rotation is equivalent. It's the same circumstance whether you do clockwise or counterclockwise. Okay, and if we look back at the rules for a 180 degree rotation, you can see here to rotate 180 degrees about the origin, you take your coordinate x, y, and you just make the x negative. It still stays the x. You just make the x negative and you make the y negative. That's really easy. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so the original point for C is 3, 2, so C double prime is going to be at -3, -2. All right, so we're going to go to -3, -2. That's going to be C double prime. And then D was 8, 6, so 8, 6 is going to become -8, -6. So we're going to go to -8, then down to -6. And let's see, that's right here. So that's D double prime. And now we just connect the 2 points with a segment. And that this is a 180 degree rotation of the segment CD. Now, interesting here, if you recall here that the points of the 90 degree rotation are 2, -3, and 6, -8. This rotation here that we just did, this C double prime and D double prime, is actually a 90 degree rotation of the 90 degree rotation that we did before. So if you do a 90 degree rotation and then another 90 degree rotation, that's 180 degrees. And look, if we were to reverse these, if we were to make the y the -3, the x, that would be a -3 over here. And then if we would make this 2 the y value but make it negative, we'd then have -2 over here. So you can do a 90 and then a 90, or you can do a 180. Okay, and so just so you know, you can accumulate rotations in this process. Let's now move on and finish up this video with translations. All right, so here is segment EF, and this says translate segment EF up 3 and right 5 to E prime, segment E prime F prime. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify the points E prime and F prime. Well, E is at 2, 6, and that's going to translate to point E prime, and we have to go up 3. And so that means we're going to add 3 to 6. We're going to add 3 to the y coordinate 6. And we want to go to the right 5, so that means we're going to add 5 to the x coordinate. And so that's going to give us 2 plus 5 is 7, and 6 plus 3 is 9. So we're going to, E prime is at 7, 9. So 7, 9, that's right here. Okay, E prime. And we can make sure, we can start here and go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And sure enough, there we are. And if we do the same thing with F, up 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like F prime winds up at 11, 6. Let's make sure. We're gonna we know we're gonna add 3 because we're going up 3. Add 3 to the y right here, and then add 5 to the x right here because we're going to the right 5. And sure enough, our F prime winds up at 6 plus 5 is 11, 3 plus 3 is 6, and that's our F prime. Now, don't forget, step 2, draw a segment between them, and oops, there we go. Draw a segment between them, and there's your translation, your translated EF. Okay, let's do maybe one more example. All right, so our last one here, translate segment EF down 10 and left 11. So down 10 means minus 10 on the y coordinate, and left 11 means minus 11 on the x coordinate. We're going to E double prime, F double prime, segment E double prime, F double prime. So let's identify E double prime and F double prime. Let's see here. So E double prime, we're going to subtract 10 from 6, and we're going to subtract 11 from 2. Well, 2 minus 11 is going to be negative 9, and 6 minus 10 is going to be negative 4. And then our F double prime is going to be 6 minus 11, it's going to be negative 5, and 3 minus 10 is going to be negative 7. So we'll go to negative 9, negative 4, 2, 3, 4, here's negative 9, negative 4, that's going to be E double prime, and then F double prime is negative 5, negative 7, it's going to be right here. It's going to be our F double prime. Now let's make sure that we did this right. We went from here, from up here. Okay, we're going down 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then left 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There we go. And then the same thing with the F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we are in the right place. Now we just draw our segment between the two, and we are good to go. And that's it for transformations of segments.